Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Caroline Slater.
And I'm her brother Sean.
Today we are... And today we are watching a minute 30. It begins with Miles continuously running from the Prowler, and a minute later ends with Miles at his parents' house.
What did you end up naming this minute?
I named this minute, Why You Not at School, Miles?
I think he's got a very good reason.
I think he does too, but it's a legit question.
Okay reason, like
he has an okay reason.
Like it's kind of one of those like you got yourself into this issue and you didn't do the thing in the beginning.
Yeah,
but
he's got reasons.
75% good reason, 25% it's his own fault. The first thing I have with this minute is it says the next train 01:00. Is that a time or
a time.
Duration? So
that's
next
probably,
train 1 a.m.?
So the next train will be in a minute.
I feel like if it was an actual duration until the next train, wouldn't it say 0 or arrived? Like this train arrived.
What was the time again?
01:00.
That's not normally a how they display the next trains.
Yeah.
Like it'll have so I don't know what that one's displaying. Unless what?
Doesn't it usually say like stop or like once the train arrives it'll say the line?
That's usually over the speaker.
Or the stop.
Like it won't say anything on here. Out here in New York, pretty much how, from my experience, I could be wrong depending where this station is, it might be different there.
I can tell you the borough.
Isn't it Brooklyn?
It's in it's in Midtown Manhattan.
Oh, it's in Midtown.
Or in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, at least so. This is another assumption I made, but like the signs on the wall say 31st Street.
Oh yeah, that's one.
Which is Manhattan.
Yeah, that's more Midtown. Oh, he traveled far. Anyway.
Yeah.
What is it? So the way the subway times happen there is that it might say next train, but then they'll be also showing the news and stuff. So it'll say here's the date and the time, or they'll show so here is the line. So I'll use the one train. So the next one train will be coming in 25 minutes, and it'll have the 2 5-minute. It won't do almost a clock time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why it's set up like that.
Yeah, so it feels like I like to think of it as a time. It kind of also makes sense as a time.
It makes more sense
for
as a
me,
time.
1 a.m. And it's just displaying a 24-hour time.
Yeah, I think that it is displaying a time compared to how they actually display when the next subway is going to be there. I think this is just time.
Yeah, because he leaves, it's darkish out already,
mm-hmm.
And then this is, he's got to travel all the way this way. So it's kind of nice to get assuming it's a time, it's nice to get a little, this is what time it is, kind of thing.
It's 1 in the morning.
But then that also, his parents are up very late for it to be 1 a.m.
It makes sense when we see his mom is still in her nurse uniform.
Yeah, so she could have been working second shift.
Probably. His mom is still in the scrubs, so it's almost, you can assume that she just got off of a second shift.
Yeah, she was probably working second shift that day.
Yeah, and Miles' dad seems to be the kind of husband that would wait for his wife, and maybe he also just recently got off work and is like, I'm not tired.
Yeah, he got home a bit earlier, was able to change quicker out of his uniform.
Yeah, plus, and some cops work late nights with them, so that actually doesn't surprise me if it is 1 a.m., who knows?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of second shift.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so some more stuff on the trains is that they're labeled a little oddly. We noticed in the previous minute when the 2 trains that were coming at Miles, they were labeled as the 677 street local. And then this one that like pulls into the station, you clearly see it is also the, is that same one. But then when Miles jumps across the platform, it's again labeled as the same thing. They're all 677 street local Q line.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't think of a reason as why that would be.
Yeah, and especially running at like this hour, like it's not busy. It's not like they just need, more train space.
No, but it's also not uncommon to have trains run different lines at different times. So, who knows?
Yeah.
The one thing, this is going a little off topic with the animation, but I just really had to share it because this is like when it happens, is after that train goes by, the other train, you hear, "Stand clear of the closing doors, please."
Yeah.
That voice haunts my dreams every night.
Yeah, it's also a very like juxtaposition of like this very, intense dramatic thing, and then it's just like, it's that beat of just like
the mundane.
Here's a quick pause to have a chuckle and catch your breath real quick as we go, as we transition into the as we transition settings and have a bit more intensity.
Yeah, it was a very clever beat.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on Miles
jumping
the tracks.
That was a very cool sequence.
We had talked a while ago about how they were like animating things on the 2s versus the 1s. And going through this one, they do something similar where each of like when Miles is turning the corner, like turning to jump the tracks or jump over the the gap, his major movements are animated on the 2s, but then they have really small camera jitters like zooming out further, animated on the 1s. So every frame the camera moves a little bit, but then every other frame Miles moves until he gets really close to the tracks, and then it switches to him moving on the 1s for a bit as he gets closer to it. And then they did what's really good with like action scenes where when they cut to the looking at the camera head on, or looking at the train head on, and we see the side shot of Miles jumping, they actually like bumped him back a little bit, and he goes, you see him take off head on, and then it moves back and he takes another like 2 steps. It goes back to before he takes another 2 steps to jump over. And it's just a very good way of like giving the viewers like time to reorient themselves as they as you do that camera movement. And that's something like in a lot of action scenes, at least in like fighting scenes, they don't do that in live action fighting scenes where you'll actually cut out like they move the camera and then cut out frames so you see the punch and then like see the end of the reaction later. We had talked about this before, but
stage combat is very similar. It's the illusion.
Yeah. And the other cool thing is when they cut to him jumping, like again it's every other frame until it does the second of the camera, or the like pseudo freeze frames where it goes into that like comic book hand drawn animation for 10 frames, and in that he's moving much slower, and it's also like his movements on the 2s again, and then it cuts back to like once it cuts out he's moving quickly again. And I just thought it was a really cool like look at the way they do that movement of like quick movement here, and like the way they to make it feel smoother, they're just like, okay, we're animating every frame, but like in the part where he's just turning around or turning the corner, he doesn't, they don't have to animate him on every frame, and it feels, it still feels like it's got a bit of a different feeling to it, that I can't really put words to exactly.
It really does have a very unique feel to it that is hard to describe.
In the director's commentary, they were saying how that the comic style where flashes to orange. That was hand drawn by Bob Persichetti, and it's one of the few, like, he had these grand illusions of doing a bunch of these sort of hand drawn, like, for the stylized emphasis, and they're like, yeah, I think this is the only one that actually ended up getting in. I did become a bit more busy as the being one of the directors and all. Yeah, but yeah, it's another one of those where it's just like is really cool and just makes a great background. But
I would have loved to see where else they would have put it if they had the time and the effort to put them in the other places that he wanted.
Yeah, and then once he lands, he kind of stumbles to the ground.
As you do.
Yeah, and that is a big gap. Like that, I'm not criticizing Miles's jumping distance here, but his jumping form could use a lot of work.
I don't think he's a track person. I'll give him this.
No, I don't think so. This is and his powers are still new. Like and he's hit puberty, so his body's a little wonky now. Things aren't really where he is also a different size than he used to be. Like it can be a little tricky when you've suddenly grown like 2-3 inches overnight.
I feel that.
Yeah, his arms are very like wavy. He could if he tightened that up a little bit and brought his legs in a little bit, he probably would have been able to stick that landing more gracefully. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10? Okay. I'll agree with that. Feels like a fair judgment on his jumping form while he's running for his life.
Yeah.
I would like to move on to this nice close-up of Prowler in his eyes. Yeah. First off, very anime. Just bringing back a little bit, because it's a very anime, like Western style close up, and he like squints his eyes and everything, and I'm like, it's sad anime, or Western, whatever you want to compare it to.
This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
Pretty much. But with like a bunch of electronic noises because it's Prowler. The one thing I found...
Beep boop, this town ain't beep boop. No.
That's it. The parts that I found very interesting was, and this is going a bit to the animation, was it's very 2D on his face.
Yeah, like his mask just looks slapped
on.
Yeah,
the mask is very flat, and like compared to everyone else's face where like the lines are similarly drawn, it seems like they had depth, while with Prowler, because his mask is so flat and he really has like no facial features at all, like it really is just kind of look like they drew this 2D animation. Like, have you ever seen those videos on Facebook or on YouTube where people have drawn like eyes, limbs, and mouths on like the inanimate objects, like the spoons and stuff?
Yeah, the real life doodles.
Yes, those things are funny. It kind of reminds me of that. Like someone did a real life doodle on this just like flat mask.
Just a very complicated one.
A very complicated one, yeah. And I just thought it was like, it looks very unique, but at the same time, like, that looks kind of funny.
Yeah, Prowler's got a very like unique design too. Like
he really does.
He's pointy.
He's pointy.
Everything on him is very sharp and pointy.
The only thing that isn't is his head.
Yeah.
His head is just like a purple egg with the mask.
And the next scene, like you look and you see like his boots have these very like the bottoms are very jagged, and he's got all of these spikes and like bolts on his gloves, and
he really you're right, he is very pointy in design.
And even like the key to his bike, which I love, I can't tell if it's either supposed to be a guitar or a flames.
I don't know, but I want it on a necklace. Like, I want some kind of, like, keychain or some piece of jewelry with that.
Also, I have two things. He's got either just, like, he just carries that key around in his pocket and, like, doesn't clip it to anything, because there's, like, it's not on a keychain. No. Or he just leaves... Does he stick it in the bike? Do we see him stick it in the bike? I don't think we've seen him stick it in the bike.
Sorry. I think it's just always in the bike.
Yeah, I was going to say, or, yeah, we just see him turn. So he just, like, sticks it in the bike. are people just smart enough not to steal from the Prowler, or
maybe
is he just that trusting? Like that thing would be gone if the key was in it.
Yeah.
But
maybe he hides it.
That's true.
I feel like he has to have some.
He could have like a box that he locks.
Yeah, he's gotta have some
kind
kind of. He has to hide it, or else like he just wouldn't have that bike. Speaking of the bike, the other element that kind of it's not totally 2D, but it kind of reminds me of like in like the old 2D TV shows how like the cape would move when he finally drove off.
Yeah, it's very unnatural feeling.
I kind of love it. Like, it's almost like someone decided to take like the Batman cape, lengthen it, and then make it move like it was out of the Matrix.
Yeah, in the animators' commentary, they were talking about how they animated that cape. Mm-hmm. And they actually used the same tech that they used to smear the frames.
Really?
Yeah, what they did, I guess, is they were able to take some of the animation masks from that and that were used to do that, and like put it on the geometry of the cape so that you could see, like, as the cape flapped, you could see through the cape, because they, I guess, like stuck it on kind of at the end.
Yeah.
And it was just a way to like help calculate and make it so you could, when it flapped up, like see where the seam between the corners kind of thing. It wasn't super clear. They were using words that I didn't really understand. And I kind of understood it just enough to get what they were saying, but I don't understand it enough to be able to like explain it too clearly. But it was just interesting. He was saying like, yeah, we used it. It wasn't really designed for this, but it worked.
It looked cool, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and it does a good job. And I think like the fact that it feels unnatural is okay, because like it's that pointy bit. It feels very like pointed in the way it moves.
I was gonna say it definitely feels like how someone would animate it in a comic book to me, like just very dramatic and extra.
Yeah.
Because capes in comic books are always extra.
And speaking of his bike and him, riding away on it, I'll back up a little bit. I really liked how they did showing Miles running away, where it was, split. They did the split into 3 panes where it's like, okay, he's running, and then like it shows him turning on the key, and then like Miles is in the middle pane, and then it like bumps him over and it shows him getting on the bike as he's still turning the key. It was just really cool how they did those panels.
I do love how they use the panels in this movie, because this is obviously not the first time we've seen the panels or the use of the panels.
Yeah,
and it's a very clever way to do it, and each one feels different and unique, and like it never feels like it overstays its welcome. It's not like, oh, they're using the panels again. It's like, ooh, cool.
Yeah. The way they transition out of it for this one is really cool too, because they have it, or they cut to like another set of 3 panels, and as he's starting to pull away, and they have the like smoke, obscure, and it shows then him like, oh, he just did a camera change. Yeah,
a very clever way to transition. The transitions in this movie are honestly really cool.
Yeah, and I loved the like speed effects on the that they used to like show the wheel turning and like kicking up the dust, and it's just like this flat 2D like hand drawn stuff. Yeah, that was
another 2D element that I saw.
Yeah, just like, really cool. I've seen it done. I don't remember what it was, but I've seen it done once in like a live action setting.
Really?
Where they did a very similar thing. It might have been in like a music video where they had like, as they were, they hand drew the like speed lines, the motion lines on it, and kind of did a very similar thing of like hand drawing the like kicking up the dust and whatnot. But I really like that. Like it looks cool.
Yeah, it does look very cool. I also love, before you go talking more about the bike, if you have any more of that, I love how when he drives past, that Miles is just like hanging on to one of those giant pipe things. I'm not really sure what it is, but like what I'm like. Nice.
And he gets off it with such ease. Like,
his powers are very inconsistent in what he does and does not get stuck to.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed this before.
Although I could see him, like, this one kind of makes a bit more sense in that, like, he's able to sort of take a breath and relax a bit now. And so it's less of a, like, running exactly for my life right now to I just need to get somewhere safe, like somewhere I feel safe. And so I could see him relaxing enough to like let go of this.
I think that's what it is that, like, with the bike going past him, he's able to kind of just take a breath and relax and get down.
Yeah, and then he's still stumbling around because he's still, like, scared, but not. It's a different kind of scared. Like, I think this is sort of the, like, adrenaline sort of, the adrenaline from being chased is, like, wearing off, and then, or, you know, it is over. Like, it's not pumping new adrenaline in, but he's still got the effects of it. And then it's finally, like, settling in of what happened to Peter. And just finally, like, being like, okay, I need to go see my parents now.
I need to get somewhere. And I love that he runs to his parents.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about the line right after this.
Yeah, this was another of those, like, okay, we just need a breather real quick before...
It's quite a funny line, too, and I don't know how I never caught this in previous viewings until we did this minute with the guy that goes, yeah, I think it's a Banksy.
Yeah, that, I believe that's Post Malone saying that. That's his line in the movie. He you know, is a fairly famous newer artist.
Well, and he's on the album too. I think we talked about it when we first met Miles, because we get introduced through Post Malone's song with another artist, Sunflower, which really became a very popular. Like, it was played on the radio a lot after the movie came out.
Yeah, I think that it was designed as, like, the single of the album/movie.
Yeah, it's definitely the most popular song to have come out of the movie.
It's also
a great song. It's not
they're all
great. It's not my personal favorite, and it actually comes back later a little bit, and we can talk to that when it pops back up. But I love that they got Post Malone to do that line. But one thing I do want to talk about is the artist mentioned, Banksy. So this is my turn to drop some knowledge on our listeners, because I don't get to do it often. Banksy is an England-based street artist, and he doesn't really have, like, an actual name besides Banksy. Like, he's an anonymous artist. No one knows who he really is, which is cool.
Well, a couple people do, but it's not a public name.
Like,
someone he knows who he is.
No one knows, not even him. It's a forever existential crisis. He's not a publicly known. He's known
figure
by Banksy, and a few of his works, his most famous is Love is in the Bin, which I think people know as the self-shredding picture.
Oh, I disagree. No, I think the Girl with the Balloon is his most famous work. Girl with the Balloon is over a decade old. It's almost 2 decades old at this point. And so I would say that his most well-known work.
Agree to disagree.
I think it's only, like, well-known because it happened most recent. Like, it's his most recent work.
That could be it.
And so that's why
it's the one that popped up first when looking up his works. Like, that was, and usually the one that's the most well-known is the one that pops up first. So, but I will say this, Balloon Girl was right after it. So the two might have almost be neck and neck right now in popularity. 2 other works of his, and these are more statues. One is called The Drinker, and then the other is Ballerina with Action Man Parts, which I highly recommend looking that one up because it looks cool. And the 2 other things I just really want to point out is that he grew out of the Bristol underground scene. Banksy is known for being a political activist as well as an artist. His works are very satirical and have a dark humor to them. But the big thing is that his arts are always public. So it tends to be graffiti or statues.
Yeah, they're usually, like, illegal arts.
Yeah. He's one of those. Which is why I thought this was a very interesting line to use to reference that specific artist, because he is so out there with his works, like having a piece of work that shreds itself and that it tends to be illegal and just out there. So I thought it was a very cool line and a very fun reference to have as well.
Yeah, he's probably the most well-known graffiti artist.
I just wanted to touch on that because I thought it was a very cool line reference. First, I thought it was a funny line, and I thought it was a very clever reference to artist to reference as well. Especially since they're in Brooklyn and he's in England.
Yeah.
Like, that might be the funniest part about it.
Yeah, and so it cuts to that, and then, like, Miles appears at home. My question is, how does he get there? Because he's a decent bit ways from home. He's a couple miles away from home, probably.
Well, I think I can give you a decent answer here is, I think the adrenaline is still running through him. So he probably just ran.
Yeah, I guess he could have run home, 20, 30 minutes of running. I could see him doing that.
And especially if he still has at least a little bit of adrenaline running through him, I could see him doing it.
1:30, yeah. He's probably running faster, too, because he's got his powers, so... Yeah, that makes sense. Now that I talk it out a bit more, I just thought of that when he was leaving the train station.
I think the thing I find more interesting is the fact that he climbed in through his window. And it seems to imply that he's got, like, quite a bit to climb.
Yeah.
So it's like, you good, dude?
Yeah, and with his, like, crawling in the window, it's a good thing he doesn't keep that window
right.
Because that would be like him just sitting there, like, struggling, trying to, like, push up the window with I bet, like, he's probably just, like, stuck to the outside of the wall, like, not standing on a ledge or anything, and so he's just, like, sitting there. His dad comes out and is like, what's going on
happening?
Here? Yeah, and he doesn't enter his room gracefully.
No, he does not. 4 out of 10 on the landing on this one.
Yeah, this one's definitely a 4. He knocks over his record player. That's going to cost him
so much. I do love how his dad just busts open the door and is like, "Police, lift with your hands." Miles? Like, first off, I love that his voice immediately softens when saying Miles.
Yeah, he does a great job of going from police mode to dad mode.
Yeah.
And he also does, like, sort of the Superman thing where he comes in, he's very big, shoulders back, arms out, looking scary, and then when he sees Miles, his shoulders drop a couple inches, he brings his arms in, and his tone softens.
The one thing that kind of, like, doesn't make too much sense to me is, like, okay, so he's a police officer. If he thought someone broke into his house, why did he not have any kind of weapon on him?
Because he's big. I mean, look at that man.
He is a big man. But I don't know. I still feel like he would have at least some kind of weapon just in case.
I mean, it's also, like, I think it's one of those weird things where, like, anyone who made it up this high probably doesn't have a whole, like...
Good point.
I don't know. I figured he heard the wrestling. He was probably... You can see the couch behind him.
Okay.
And so he was probably like, well, I better get in there quickly and scare them instead of...
Okay. No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Scramble around to find the baseball bat.
No, that's a fair point. I do love, after this moment, where, like, he's just like, Miles, why aren't you at school? That's where my title came from.
Yeah.
But...
could you imagine Miles, like, trying to explain what happened? Like, just rambling through it, and his dad being like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like, no, I'm glad they went with the silent approach with Miles, where he just sees his dad, and he just runs up and hugs him, which I think does a few things. One, it's just a very sweet moment, first off. Yeah. But two, it shows, like, just how much Miles has been through, because we have seen in previous minutes earlier in this movie how he and his dad don't exactly get along that well, and how, he was about to call his dad, but then hangs up when he first discovers these things.
And, like, when he asks him, like, why isn't he at school, he's a little, like, his brow's furrowed, so he's, a little upset. Yeah. But then when Miles hugs him, he's like, whoa, okay, this is not the Miles I know.
Something happened.
Something's off.
Something happened.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just love that this moment is like, you can just see how scared and defeated Miles is, because he goes and hugs his dad like so tight. And like even his dad is surprised by this, like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I love how when his mom looks up, they share, his mom and his dad share this great glance. But, like, it's such a parental glance of, like, what's going on, what's happening, we have to help our son.
Yeah, they make quick eye contact and then right back down. Yeah, it's that very brief, just like, what's going on? And, like, you know, they have that full, you know, conversation.
Yeah. It's like, let's just help him get better.
Second.
Right now.
Yeah, and I did like how she asks him in Spanish, what's wrong?
Yeah.
It was just like another one of those nice little, you know, bilingual household touches.
It's just a very sweet and sombering moment that I think is a beautiful way to close out this minute.
Yeah, so, you know, thank you for joining us on this bit of a downer at the end of the week.
Yeah, right?
but it gets better soon, I promise. Next minute's also a bit of a downer.
The next few minutes are a bit of downers.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I'm a total liar. I think all of next week's a downer.
All of next week's a downer. I think quite a bit of the following week might be a downer.
So if you want to stay in touch with us, you can follow us on Twitter at SpiderverseMin, MIN, or you can join our Facebook page at Spiderverse Minute. Follow us on Instagram or YouTube, also at Spiderverse Minute. And if you want to send us an email, you can shoot one over to podcast@spiderverseminute.com.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.